If you had one shot or one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted in one moment, would you capture it or just let it slip? Yo. His palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. There's vomit on his sweater already. Mom's spaghetti, he's nervous, but on the surface he looks calm and ready to drop bombs. But he keeps on forgetting what he wrote down. The whole crowd goes so loud, he opens his mouth, but the words won't come out. He's choking how? Everybody's choking now. The clock's run out, time's up, over, loud. Snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. Oh, there goes gravity. Choke. He's so mad, but he won't give up. That is, he know he won't have it. He knows his whole back to these ropes. It don't matter, he's dope. He knows that, but he's broke. He's so stagnant, he knows when he goes back to this mobile home, that's when it's back to the lab again, yo. This old rhapsody better go back to this moment and hope it don't pass him.
Listen, we can talk about the flag, but let's talk about the team. Wait.
And a very good morning, everybody. Welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We're live always, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, you know it. 8:30 a.m. every single day of the week. It's Overreaction Monday here today. I am your host, Phil Stifle, at Beard of Knowledge on Twitter, joined by my overreacting crew here, Jason Voorhees, at Mustang 3651, Mark Moscatelli, Mark with a C. And boy, are we going to overreact. Boy, are we going to be excited. I said last week, Thursday, we're not going to talk Phillies unless Joe Girardi's fired. Friday, we're not going to talk Phillies unless Joe Girardi's fired. And bam, 9:45 right after Trending in the AM Friday ended, Joe Girardi was fired. So we're back to talking Phillies today because boy, oh boy, does changing a manager all of a sudden just flip a switch with a team. So much to think about, so much to talk about. So much was Joe Girardi really doing wrong. But all of a sudden, we got a 4-game winning streak going. We just swept the Angels this weekend. And maybe we're back. Maybe we're not. We'll see what happens. But good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, Jason. Mark, good job doing the breaking news conference with Cole on Friday, holding it down with the young fella. Good morning, gentlemen. How we doing?
Doing great.
Good morning. Good morning.
We're all like smiling today. There's not a lot of angst going on.
There's not a lot of negativity after having a 3-game sweep of the Angels at home. And, you know, a lot of positivity from changing the manager. A lot of things happened. You know, Jason, me and you were texting back and forth, and I had to go back to find the exact text message. And I texted you on Saturday. I'm like, look at how much different this team looks just by the simple fact that Friday night in the 9th inning of a 10-run game, Nick Nelson was the pitcher, not Corey Knebel. And then in the 8th inning of a close game, Sir Anthony Dominguez was in there in the 8th, not James Norwood. And just simple things like that. Is it really as simple as managing a baseball team is not that complex? Just put your best players out there at the most important times and save them for those moments. Was Joe Girardi really failing this team as much as it seemed this weekend?
I mean, I think it's evident. Like, if you looked at Joe Girardi during his entire tenure here in Philly, all he ever did was look at that clipboard. And he didn't focus on the game. Like, they could hit, like, they would have a play, and he would be looking, down. Always looking down. I heard one of the commentators actually make comment that Joe Girardi rarely even talked to any of the players in the dugout. Like, as a manager, I need my manager to be a leader. Doesn't necessarily mean there's a difference between being somebody's friend, but being somebody that holds somebody accountable, but also being there in the thick of it and actually being a leader. Like, hey, great job. I manage a supermarket. I know it's not the same as managing a baseball team. But what I do know about being a manager is that one of the most important things is being real, being a human being, being a person, having that camaraderie with your team. I just don't think Joe Girardi, maybe it's just not in him. It's not in his personality. But you mentioned the fact that these differences in like having pitchers in there and in different situations. I'm hoping that Rob Thomson, even though right now he's the interim, who knows? Maybe he could have a good season, and they end up saying, "Wow, Rob Thompson's the next man." I don't know what's going to happen,
Right.
but what I do know is that these situations that are going on right now, it's almost as if he's trying to kind of, I'm not saying take analytics away, but step aside and kind of pull back a little bit and say, well, what about the human element? Because that's what I'm seeing here. I'm seeing more of a human element in his managing style and the way that he makes his his substitutions, especially with the pitchers. So I think you're on to something there, Phil.
Yeah, it's funny. And Mark, I'll let you go in a second here. But on Friday night, the human element of it, when Bryce Harper hit that home run on Friday night, the first person at the top of the dugout steps there, ready to shake his hand and say congratulations, was Rob Thomson. You know, Joe Girardi probably wouldn't even have budged on a home run. So it's just something interesting there. Mark, is it really that simple that just getting out of the way and letting your team play baseball? Is that was Joe Girardi almost to an extent over managing this team?
I think so, and I hope my internet's working. You guys can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
And Jason, I think you're wrong when you say that you manage a supermarket and it's not like managing a baseball team. Actually, it is. You're managing personalities. You're managing relationship. You're managing communication styles. Those are all things that translate whether you manage a trash company or your CEO or a pizzeria or a supermarket. I think that had a huge part to do with why the Phillies were failing, because you've removed that piece that did not apparently communicate to any of his players at all. And all of a sudden they won 3 straight and in spectacular fashion. They blew them out on the first game. They got an early lead on the second, and then they came back to win that game yesterday. That's a loss. That is a loss under Joe Girardi. And they probably would have given up more runs than that one run to go ahead in that ninth. We talked about this too, about culture and how about the team taking the life of the personality of the person that manages the team. He had no life, no energy, and I'm serious. I think he was there to just collect a check. And I mean, I don't know how much he was getting paid, but it was probably pretty handsome. And you want to look at bigger picture stuff. Who hired Joe Girardi? It was John Middleton against the advice of the general manager who wanted Dusty Baker and Buck Showalter, who was in that. So maybe John needs to kind of sit in the owner's box and let his baseball people do baseball things, and maybe this team will be better off for it.
Yeah, I mean, so Friday, Sam Fold, who's the GM, I mean, Sam Fold's basically the Elton Brand of the Phillies, really doesn't have any say. Couldn't even have told you who the GM was, honestly, because everybody just knows it's Dave Dombrowski pulling the trigger. His quote on why Rob Thomson will be an effective manager, I think he can, and I think he's going to listen. He's going to communicate with players and staff. I think he's just going to be a steady force. Tell me that does not sound like a direct shot at everything that Joe Girardi was doing wrong right there. And for your GM to come out and say that, that's kind of like a little knife in the back as Joe Girardi's, walking away. But it's the truth, because if you see everything that Thomson has done so far in his brief 3 days as manager of this team, he's communicating, he's being open and honest with the media and the fans, and it's translating to, look, we're still a flawed team. This is just that initial energy and boost from the change. There are still fundamental flaws with this team, but at least Rob Thomson is going to be upfront and honest with his players and upfront and honest with the fans, which will, in turn, probably help us win a few more games than losing games. And we won't have those, like you said, Mark, games that Joe Girardi would have lost. Maybe now we win some of those games. So, the positive effect of having him in here is exponential, but just the parting shots towards Joe Girardi. We've been talking about firing Joe Girardi for a month now, maybe longer, that he had lost his team since the Angel Hernandez game way back when. I'm curious to know why they waited so long to pull this trigger. Because it's obviously a quick change around like that. You fire the manager, you promote from within, and it's an instant fix almost to an extent.
I think there was a little bit of, if you want my honest opinion, I think, you know how there was reports that Dave Dombrowski had come out like a month ago and said, "Oh, Joe's not going anywhere," and we said that could have been like coach speak, so to say, like when somebody says something but they don't mean it, they're just saying it kind of to save face. I don't actually know this, but it appears to me that this decision may have come sooner. I think the person that held it back was Middleton, because I agree with Mark. I think Middleton's the one that picked Girardi. And I think that Middleton, although we all think that he doesn't get involved, he does get involved behind the scenes. We might not see it. And I'm guilty of bashing him and saying, "Oh, he doesn't care." And listen, I'm sure he cares. Obviously, it's his team, but we get frustrated in the heat of the moment and we say stuff. But I think Middleton probably held that back. I think what it was another kind of losing streak after that, like where they kind of started to implode again. And I think Dombrowski, Fold, etc., had to go to Middleton and just say, "Look, we got to do something now. If we don't do something now, it's going to be over." And I think that's why it took longer than it should have. I think Middleton really wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, and it's his guy, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's also his money too. I mean, he's going to have.
It was $8 million he was making.
$8 million.
I think that's what it was.
That's a lot of money for doing less than what Ryan Sandberg did when he was here. That's really bad. I wanted Joe to be successful here. And I thought he would be a perfect kind of fit. New York guy in the Philly. Dude, he failed miserably, man. And I don't know if he gets another chance to manage or if he even wants to manage. I mean, the way he was managing made it appear that he didn't want to manage. I mean, but it's the right decision. Should they have done it sooner? Probably. But there's probably a lot of factors that are out there as well. I'm curious if any of the players went behind the scenes to Dombrowski or Middleton and said, "This guy's got to go," namely Harper. But,
I brought that up this week. Mark. Do you think either A, like you said, that Harper went to Middleton, or do you think Middleton was really torn? Like Dombrowski says, like Jason said, Dombrowski wanted to get rid of him. Maybe Middleton didn't. Do you think John Middleton, torn, like, what do I do? What do I do? Went to Bryce Harper and said, "Hey, Bryce, you're in that locker room every single day. You're in that clubhouse. You're in the dugout every day. What do you think we should do?" And
I think
it wouldn't surprise me if that happened. And Bryce is like, "Yeah, dude, the team's lost with that right now with the way the leadership's going."
I think you do poll your players.
At least
Not
your
all
star.
of them. Yeah, your leaders in the clubhouse, and just, hey, what's the noise down in the clubhouse? And they probably knew, but they didn't want to acknowledge it because I'm sure Dombrowski's in and out of that clubhouse. I'm sure Middleton is. I mean, he's a hands-on guy, so I'm sure he's floating through. He probably sees and hears things, and I guess they were pretending that everything was okay when really it wasn't. And they made the right decision. They probably should have done it sooner. Like I said, I said this on the emergency conference show that Cole and I did, was maybe they should have fired him after that Brewers game where he didn't do anything with Angel Hernandez. He had to wait until Kyle Schwarber blew up, and then he came out of the dugout and he didn't do anything. So he wasn't adding anything to the team. He wasn't communicating to the players. He had much of nothing to say to the media other than it's going to turn around. And he was full of shit, dude. Like, it was time to cut bait with the guy, and they did. just kind of wish they did it maybe a few weeks prior. They might have a better chance of really kind of winning the division and winning 90 games. Now it's, if they get to 85 games, I think it's going to be a miracle. So
I think I know today's overreaction Monday, but what you said there at the end there, it's really important. Like, I'm not even looking at it as like winning the division right now. I'm just looking at the turn around the energy. My goal right now is let's get back to 500. See how long it takes to get to 500. Then we can start maybe creeping up in that wild card. Then if things start to go right, then maybe if the Mets implode, you never know. Maybe we make a run. But I think we have to start looking at it in short little bursts, every 5 to 10 games, how they do, and then start the slow climb back. It's like when you talk basketball. Oh, well, if they could just cut the lead to 10 before halftime and stuff like that. Just like see how quickly we could get this team turned around back to 500, and then we could take those incremental steps.
And one other thing, didn't mean to cut you off. Just remember, baseball is an entertainment product. People go down there to be entertained. There's 3 games this weekend were very entertaining. They had 30,000 plus. A lot of it had to do with Trout, but maybe this kickstarts some people going to the games too. I mean, you need those gate receipts. You need that building full.
So funny you said that, because when Jason logged into the StreamYard before the show, he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm writing stats down right now for the show." You know what stats I was writing down, Jason? The attendance. Sunday, 34,800 fans. Saturday, 36,300 fans. And Friday, 28,700 fans. Yes, Mike Trout, Ohtani, those guys drew some of that crowd in. Let me tell you something. That place was jumping. They picked the perfect time. It almost seems like strategic. Like they knew firing the manager would reinvigorate the fan base a little bit. And the team a little bit. So they picked a weekend to have that change happen when they knew there'd be fans in the stands. So now that place was jumping, 38,000 people cheering. They got the new energy from the team. It's almost like there's like this whole little strategic play on why they fired him when they did, because they knew it would spark the team, which would spark the crowd. That you don't want to fire the manager when there's 12,000 people in the stands. It doesn't really do anything. It was great to see that place packed and open and laughing. Sorry, Jason, go ahead.
No, why are you sorry? I just said it's smart. I mean,
it's a business, you still got to.
Conspiracy theorists will love that, though. They're loving this right now, Phil. They're out there like, wow, yeah, another conspiracy. No, I'm kidding. No, in all fairness, they looked energized, as you said. I'm going to look at one player in particular. Obviously, we'll get into the game from yesterday.
We'll get to that, Joe.
The funny thing is Bryce Harper, and a lot of us said this coming into this year, that he could actually have a better year this year than he did last year, which is hard to do in baseball or in any sport, to replicate an MVP type year. But I got to tell you, man, I'm looking at the numbers, and it's going to blow your mind. Like last year, first half of the season. Now remember, he was on the IL 2 times last year, but still, even so, he's on pace right now. He had 15 home runs last year in the first half. We're still 30 some games away from the first half of, before the All-Star break. He already has 13 home runs. He's already creeping up on his RBI total from last year in the first half. Like, all the numbers are showing that Bryce Harper's trending towards an even better year, which just has to, as a Phillies fan, has to make you happy, because we all love Bryce Harper. But what I'm looking at even more so than that is the fact that the rest of the team has so underperformed. Sooner or later, because I know I always bash analytics, but analytics do have a place in the game, and analytics do kind of drive the numbers, and more so in any sport, because in baseball, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a long season. That's why a lot of times you'll see guys that have career worst first halves still end up with basically similar numbers to their career trajectory, because in baseball, that's what happens. A lot of times you'll say at the end of the year, wow, Rhys Hoskins has 28 home runs. He looked terrible. but that's like his career thing. These guys will always get to those numbers, but we're just kind of like in the instant gratification world, we're so focused on, man, this guy's doing terrible right now. But that's why I don't want to get off track, but what I guess the point that I'm trying to drive home is that if Bryce Harper continues to have a better year and he's doing better than he was last year, and these guys maybe wake up and start kind of performing at the same time, yes, then this offense will be scary. That's what we all expected. It's just,
I mean, you have Bryce Harper hitting the way he is, and Nick Castellanos. I heard a stat yesterday during the game or on the radio. He's hitting like 190 or something like that over the last couple of weeks. His average overall is down to 244 right now. Just imagine how much better this team is, even if Nick Castellanos, just him alone, gets back to what he's doing. But yeah, I mean, Bryce Harper's having an amazing season at this point. No doubt about it. Mark.
I mean, yeah, Harper's picked up where he left off, and I was quite surprised, even with the injury. I mean, he's clutch, man, and he hasn't missed a beat. And it was a fantastic signing, and it continues to be a fantastic signing. And he could go back-to-back MVPs if he continues this pace. Hopefully, he'll prop up everybody else. He's batting in and around Nick Castellanos. Maybe they'll give him fastballs to hit, so his average does pop up. That's what's great about this lineup. If you could piece it together and put these guys in a certain order where one protects the other, and you can prop other guys up on that. Joe was mentioning something he posted. What Phillies you think you're going to be dealt?
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to see that. If you do, I think it's Didi Gregorius, because Didi was Joe Girardi's guy. And honestly, I don't – he could probably get you a relief pitcher or a player to be named late or something. I don't think he fits on the team anymore. I just don't.
Because I'm not just saying because I know it's an overreaction to say that we're back in it because we won 3 games this weekend or 4 in a row. But this team has constantly said that they aren't going to be sellers. They're going to be buyers at the deadline. Then you have a new energy. If we start winning a few games, get back to 500, they're going to be buyers. They're going to be trading. I joked about trading JT Real Muto because you got Logan O'Hoppe down in the minors. But Logan O'Hoppe is going to be a much sought-after trade piece. So you're going to be more likely to see them trade some of these minor leaguers that they've got and try to adjust the team. Yeah, maybe a DD gets traded, but DD's expendable. Gene Segura, to an extent, I know he just broke his hand or finger or whatever. They're the kind of guys, if anybody gets traded, you might see one of those 2 guys get traded. But what I love is that Rob Thomson you talk about the lineup, Mark, outside of benching Mickey Moniak on Sunday for Odubel, the lineup's been basically the same for 3 straight days. He had Stott in there all 3 days. He had Moniak in there 2 out of the 3 days. Everybody was in the same slot for 3 straight days in that lineup. And you saw Rob Thomson say, we're going to use our young guys. They're going to get playing time. And guess what? They got playing time. You didn't see Mickey Moniak in there and then get pulled 2 at-bats into the game. Or you didn't. Well, he got designated for assignment now, but you didn't see him putting Roman Quinn out there for a defensive replacement on Nick Castellanos and then that backfiring in a 9th inning or something like that. Yeah. The overall lineup construction, way he's managing these players, even in a short cup of coffee, is the complete opposite of what Joe Girardi did, which is weird because Rob Thomson has managed and worked under Joe Girardi a huge part of his career. Yeah. Rob Thomson had 28 years with the Yankees. He was on Joe Girardi's bench his entire time in New York.
And you know what that tells me, Phil?
What's that?
What that tells me is that he sees the mistakes that Joe Girardi has made, and he's pivoting on those mistakes. It's exactly what I'm telling you. Joe Girardi's whole management style was completely built on analytics. Like, there was no human element at all. 0. You see it. That's why you would see a Knievel in there in the 9th inning of a tie game or of a game where, they were winning. Like you were saying, you're seeing Rob Thomson make decisions based on the feel of the game, not just the analytics. That's the difference. And I don't think there's really that much more to it than that. I think the whole problem with Joe Girardi, it's not that he wasn't a good baseball guy. I think Joe Girardi is a fantastic person as a human being. He's a great guy. He is. I mean, I've heard interviews. He's not a bad guy. Like, nobody will say a bad thing about him as a person. He's just not a good manager. And that's okay. I mean, that's understandable. That happens in life. There's people that are good employees, but not necessarily when they get promoted to a management position, they're not that good. And it's exactly what it is. They're missing that human element. They cannot connect on the level with their people. Rob Thomson, just because he's managed under Joe Girardi doesn't mean he's necessarily going to be Joe Girardi. You take the good and the bad. When you learn under a manager, and this is what I've done in my whole career. I've always I take like two good qualities and I merge it with the quality of mine. And that's how I have my style. Like, everybody has their own style, and you see things that your boss does that you're like, it makes you shake your head, and sometimes it's cringeworthy, and you're like, what the hell? I'm telling you, that's what's happening here, and you're going to see a difference just because I actually think it helps the fact that Thomson managed under him so long, because he's going to know what didn't work, and he's going to kind of manage around that. And you're seeing that already in a short span.
Look, I know Mark's got to get to a work thing here very shortly, so I want to get Mark's final thoughts real quick on the air before he's got to jet out here, and then we'll continue on here.
Yeah, I just to close real quick. And Jason hit the nail on the head. Like, you might be worried about, hey, Rob Thomson worked for Girardi for so long. He's a clone. Well, not necessarily. Same deal, Jason. I worked for the first manager I ever worked for. She did a lot of things that I told myself I would never do if I ever became manager. But she also had some great traits too. So I added the great traits, and I made sure that I limited a lot of the stuff that he didn't like. Somebody working under somebody for that long, he knew exactly the pros and cons, and he probably developed something that he's going to be different than Joe. And he was probably on the staff because he was a much better communicator than Joe, that kind of voice what needs to be voiced. I think he'll be fine in the interim. I think if he makes the playoffs, he'll get an extension. I think if they don't make the playoffs, they're starting all over. So that's all I have. Guys, you enjoy the rest of your show. I'll check it out a little bit later. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, enjoy. Have a good day.
We love you, man.
We love you too, man. Talk to you guys later.
Bromance off my air. No more bromance. And I love you. I love you. No.
I said we love you. He's a good man.
Yeah, no. Get that out of here. The bromance. It's got to stop.
You know what, Phil?
Yeah, I know. Exactly. Anyway, back on it's back on track here. I was trying to figure out a comparison because, let's be honest, Rob Thomson, I would say the casual fan wouldn't even have known who he was, because it's not like they promoted, one of the famous names or big names that they had in the organization. But I was sitting there I'm thinking about Rob Thomson's career, and I've been looking at it. I mean, the guy's never been a manager. He's never even been a hitting coach. He's just been a bench guy his whole career. And you're talking about how he's kind of invigorating these guys and how he's communicating with these guys. It's kind of making me think of like Vukovic and how he was with this organization for such a long time, and the people like respect it and understand, and he was that communicator with the players. It would have been like if he ever had to get promoted for a short period of time to take over the team, because the players just love this guy. So I'm just not sure, though, if Rob Thomson being even the interim for the rest of the season is the right answer. And it was something we were talking about on Twitter this weekend, me and a bunch of different people, of the simple philosophy that baseball has when they name an interim manager, that is basically for the rest of the season. They never try to, fill that role permanently right away. And whether it's the right way or not to do things. I mean, it's 20, what are we, 24, 25 and 29 now. So we are 54 games into the season. The season's still got a long way to go. Having Rob Thomson as the interim for a week or two, that's fine. But is he going to be able to hold this team for the entire season? And that's why I go into thinking, should they be looking for that next long-term replacement right now? Because whether we make a playoff run or we're trying to evaluate the the young guys like the Stott and the Moniacs, wouldn't you want the guy of the future in there right now if you can get him?
No, I disagree. I think
Okay.
Rob Thomson actually could change a lot of people's minds. I think a lot of people are looking at this, the wrong way. I see what you're saying, and I understand the point you're trying to make, but I don't think it's necessarily a fact that Rob Thompson's not going to succeed or not be the next guy that could manage this team. I think he's a guy that, although he hasn't ever been a manager, there's a lot of people out there that don't ever get a shot and they're comfortable where they're at, but when they get an opportunity, they shine. And I think what you're going to see with Rob Thomson is the fact that he is that guy. He is a people person. He is somebody that connects with his players, which is one of the most important parts of being a manager. Mm-hmm. It's easy to say, like, let's go get our next guy now. But especially when you're going from without the organization, somebody from outside that doesn't know any of these players, doesn't have a system, and you bring them in, it's almost the same as like getting a James Harden at the end of the year on a team and trying to make that team gel. It's the same thing. It's the same concept. It's too much of a change to the point where it could have the actual opposite effect. Now, if Rob Thomson comes in and, they have this energy for 2 weeks and then they revert back to the same old shit, a month from now, and you're coming to the All-Star break and you're like, what are we doing? Then maybe I could say, well, maybe we do need to, look for somebody else. But I think you got to at least give the guy a shot.
I'm not saying not give the guy a shot. I'm just saying, he's been in the league for 30 years now as a coach. He hasn't had 35 years as a coach. He hasn't been given that chance yet. I'm not saying he can't do it, but I'm saying what he's doing over 3 games so far. Just the simple, he's the guy that everybody likes and respects in that dugout and stuff. But when the going gets tough, will he be able to make the tough decisions and keep it? Because it's not like, I don't know. To me, he's that nice guy, John Vukovic type. That's just the assistant guy for a career. And I don't know if that wins long term or holds a locker. He's not like the way you're describing him. Kind of, it makes me think of Charlie Manuel, the players type manager. But Charlie Manuel was a little different than Rob Thomson, I think. And I just think that Rob Thompson's role in his career long term won't translate.
See, that's not true. I was an assistant for 20 years of my life before I became a manager. And the thing is that a lot of times you got to look at the situation. He managed, he was an assistant under Girardi all those years for the Yankees, and then obviously came over when Joe got the job here. Doesn't necessarily mean he can't be a manager. He just never was in the right position at the right time to be a manager. It just never happened. Doesn't mean it can't happen. There's guys that become managers later in their careers. Look at a lot of these managers that are in their 80s. It happens all the time. Like, in baseball, you see a lot of managers that are older. Like, a lot of times the younger guys, they take these positions, then they go into TV, and they're kind of back and forth. I see what you're saying, but I think you got, like I said, you got to at least see if he can. Maybe you're right. Maybe you'll come to a point where you're saying, well, no, he can't make those decisions. But what I've seen in a short span, I get it. You're going to have that momentum from the change. It's natural, no matter what. It's
a jolt of adrenaline.
Yes.
So let's talk about what did he do this weekend specifically? I know I mentioned at the top, using 2 bullpen pieces at certain times. What has he done right this weekend in his first 3 games?
Well, I could tell you another huge thing. You mentioned the biggest thing, which was
having Nick Nelson in the 10th 10-run game and using Sir Anthony in the 8th inning of a close game. Huge moments right there.
Yes, absolutely. Use of relief pitchers. We've harped on that all year. That's nothing new with Joe Girardi. Now Joe Girardi, obviously in the Yankees, he didn't have that problem. He had a guy, Mariano Rivera, who could pitch in any situation. So I don't know if that hurt or helped Joe Girardi. It probably hurt him because he's not used to having to manage that. But the biggest thing that I see besides that, allowing young players to play. If you're going to put them in there, let them put them in and let them rip.
Yeah.
Bryson Stott, perfect example. Bryson Stott, we were saying that in the beginning of the year. Either let the guy play or put him in the minors. You can't have these young guys, and people misread that when you said that. When you said that you can't put young guys in and then start flip-flopping and putting them in, putting them out. People misread that and said, like, oh, that doesn't happen in the league. No, you're not saying that. But what you are saying is that when you have a young kid, it's important to let them play. They have to learn from their mistakes. If they are totally getting, mixed signals from the manager, it's going to hurt their development. And I like the fact that Rob has already came out and said, yes, these young kids are going to play.
Here's the thing. So on Friday night, game 1, he was 2 for 4, Bryson Stott. And then he went out on Saturday and was 0 for, which Joe Girardi would have benched him for Sunday.
Exactly.
Then he goes out on Sunday. He was 1 for 5 on Sunday, but he was 0 for 4. So he was 0 for 6 over Saturday and most of Sunday. And he had the confidence to leave the kid in there. And what did that once you start getting that confidence that, hey, one mistake's not going to cost me 3 days of playing time, then you start to loosen up a little bit and be a little bit more free as a baseball player. Then all of a sudden, look what happens. So that is key. I noticed something else, and I want to backtrack here on my other screen here and get to Friday's games box score real quick. So, like, we talk about his use of it, the managing the relief pitchers. I think it's also the way he invokes confidence or the way he manages starters. Because Friday night, Zach Eflin was pitching a gem, and he left them out there for 8 innings, 104 pitches. Joe Girardi probably pulls him in the 6th or the 7th. But then yesterday, Kyle Gibson didn't have his best stuff. No surprise, because Kyle Gibson isn't going to have great stuff often.
And he pulled him.
He pulled him pretty. Didn't wait for it to get too far out of hand. Pulled him in the 4th inning. Where Joe Girardi might have left Kyle Gibson in there a little longer, and Zach Eflin would have gotten pulled very early in the game.
And what do those two situations signify? He's managing by the feel of the game. He's not managing by the analytics. And that's exactly what, once again, that's what Joe did. That's why Zach Eflin would get pulled in the 6th inning, because Joe would be looking at, well, he threw 7 balls and 1 strike, and no, I have to go to it was all numbers driven the way that he managed, and that's.
I was say go to the bullpen on Saturday night. We're up. What was it, 4-2 or 5-2? You got Knebel warming up and Brogdon. Joe Girardi, because Knebel was warming up, throws him out there, even though we scored 2 more runs, and you don't need him, and you save him for Sunday when you needed him. Yeah, he blew the save on Sunday, but the feel, but also it's part feel, but it's also part just old school basic baseball, non-analytics, like you're saying. Well, it's not a save situation anymore. Save your closer.
And not to go back to something that you said earlier, but you mentioned the fact that will Rob Thomson be able to make difficult decisions? Well, I'm going to tell you the difficult decision that I think every single fan in Phillies land would like to see, and that's going to be removal of Corey Knebel from the closer role and inserting Sir Anthony Dominguez. And I actually think that will happen very soon. I see it coming. I think Rob wants to get a feel, but I think once Rob sees that, wow, Corey Knebel, another blown saver, he's not what we're looking for, and he's going to say, you know what, Sir Anthony, young guy, has the stuff. I'm going to make this decision. Once he does something like that, that's to me is those difficult decisions that you're speaking about.
Yeah,
Will he be able
here,
to make a
I think
decision?
he's going to give him. I think he's going to give him a little time.
Yeah,
Because the whole team is now kind of changing. The atmosphere is changing. The culture is changing. Maybe Corey Knebel, because Corey Knebel pitched okay in April and May. He wasn't pitching bad. Most of his blown saves are in the last week or two. So I think he gives him a chance to get out of the rut he's in right now.
absolutely.
But he won't waste time. He's not going to wait another 2 months to do it. I know I see a lot of people saying to bring up what's his name? He's the closer for AAA, Mark Apple or Appel or how you ever say his name. Former number 1 overall pick, retired from baseball, is back now in the Phillies organization, and he's closing games really well down there in AAA right now. But no, I don't think you need to do that. I think you do what you said. It's Sir Anthony. We said it when his rookie year and he got called up. He was the closer, the arm troubles, whatever. He looks ready. Maybe you don't make the change now just to get Sir Anthony consistent time in the 8th inning role. He hasn't even been consistent in that 8th inning role for a while. So let him get some high pressure 8th inning situations under his belt for the next month. See how Corey Knebel, handles it. Then maybe you make that change after that. I don't know, but Sir Anthony's got everything you'd want in a closer.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about numerous times on all of our shows how Tommy John surgery, it used to be a death sentence for pitchers, and now it's like the opposite effect. Like pitchers actually, eventually, it might take 2 years, but they come back better than they were before the surgery. It's the same with the ACL thing. We talked about that.
Yeah.
I think Sir Anthony.
Oh, I've been thinking of going to get a Tommy John surgery to see if I can make a late run in a baseball career.
Well, Sir Anthony,
I'm just going to get it done just to get a stronger arm.
I mean, you might start seeing that, but
you might.
Sir Anthony has definitely profiled from day one since he was brought up as a closer, and we've all said it. Everybody knows it. Like baseball experts, analysts know it. Like he's got closer stuff. Like it's legit. It was just the injury that kind of set him back.
Yeah.
And obviously, when they signed Corey Knebel, if you look at Corey Knebel, he realistically was only really successful as a closer like 1 or 2 years. His best work, Corey Knebel, has come as a setup man. And I said that when they brought him in. I really didn't want him as a closer. And now maybe what I said, listen, I own my takes. I said I wanted Brad Hand, and Brad Hand has been not anything near what a closer should be either.
Right.
But Sir Anthony absolutely has the stuff. And like I said, I see that as the first difficult decision that Rob Thomson will make, but I think he will make it. Whereas Joe Girardi would wait forever and continue, or he would insert, Familia or something, like somebody like we're like, why? Go with the young guy, especially when you're at the point in the season where you're so far out. Like right now, it's like you said, we got to take baby steps. We can't look at this as we have a shot at the division. If they start doing that, they're going to end up imploding because you can't focus on winning the division when you're 14. I don't know how many games they're out.
They're 11 games out of the division now.
All right, they're 11 right now. Like let's worry about starting to put together winning series.
Get to 500. And then work on getting to 3 games over 500. Then get over, because we know back before Joe Girardi, we talked about it. The Phillies had to go like something like 71 and like 37 just to get to the 92 win plateau that some people predicted. And that to take over the Mets only had to go just over 500. So overtaking the Mets is going to take an astronomical feat. Right now, you should just start baby steps. Let's get to 500. Then, now with the third wild card, then you start working on, all right, let's climb 2 teams. Because I don't know what they're at now. I can look right now. But I know last week when we were talking this, they were like, I don't know, I think they had like 7 teams ahead of them in the standings in the wild card. Let me see. I can pull it up real fast. Right now, they are 4.5 out, but they've got 3 teams ahead of them right now in the wild card. And they would have to get up past the Giants right now, who are 29 and 24. So, let's just start baby steps. Get to 500. Then let's climb over one team. Let's get past the Braves in the division. Small goals like that, I think, are the key. And that's what a manager like Rob Thomson, if he's going to succeed, he's going to set small goals. He's not going to set big goals. He's not going to say today in the clubhouse if they have a practice today, be like, yo guys, this is the goal. We got to get to first place by the end of July 1st or something like that. No. That's insurmountable. You set baby goals that they can, achievable goals. You set the achievable goals.
I agree. I mean, I think if you look at this team so far, we could sit here today and still say that it's still technically quote unquote early because there's still a lot of baseball to be played.
Yeah.
I think if you take it in the incremental, smaller, version of your outlook as opposed to saying, well, we got to win the division or whatever. Look at it in little mini spurts. It will actually eliminate some of what I think happens a lot of times with slumps in baseball is it's 80% mental, where a lot of times guy goes 0 for 15, they start pressing because they know that, man, I'm really struggling. Like, you look at a guy like Schwarber, like I think it's exactly what's happened to him, but Kyle Schwarber has also had the last few years, even though we've said that overall he's not a contact hitter. Let's face it. He's a guy that's boom or bust. But if you look at his June,
had 16 home runs in June
last year. He had a June of all Junes. I mean, he was amazing, and he started off this June kind of the same way. Now I know yesterday he went over, but once again, that's the thing where you got to keep somebody's confidence. And you look at Joe Girardi, like Kyle could have a game like yesterday, and now today or the next day that they play, Joe will have him down in a 6 hole. Like, if you're going to put him in the first hole, then keep him there. That's what I've been saying since day one, is that you have to eliminate this thing with the mental. And the one way to do that, the best way to do that, is to have a set lineup.
And that's what it seems like it's good. I mean, the lineup we've brought out there this weekend: Schwarber, Hoskins, Harper, Castellanos, JT, Bohm, 1 through 6. It seems like that is going to be the lineup going forward.
And I'm okay with that, especially going from such an analytic-driven mentality. You have to, and like I said, I'm not saying eliminate analytics, but you have to have both. You have to have, and I think it's the perfect example is this weekend. He went with Stott. He let Stott play. Joe Girardi would have pulled him for Didi. Mm-hmm. We would have never even had that moment. We would have never had that game-winning home run if Joe Girardi was in the seat. You know it.
Yeah, look. I know he played Odubel over Moniak yesterday,
and that's okay.
And that was one game. I still think that's not going to be this week you got 6 games. They're off today, and they got 3 against the Brewers, then 3 against Arizona. You're going to see Moniak over Odubel 5 out of those 6 games probably. He's going to have to play Odubel occasionally, but you're going to see Moniak out there 5 out of the 6, 4 out of the 6 at least. And you're going to see Stott out there, pretty much every day now. It's going to be Stott and then Camargo and Didi rotate in that other spot. It's going to be Stott every single day.
Well, don't forget, I think Didi can play second base.
Yeah, he could. I don't know if he will. I mean, you could also play Stott over at second base, which I'm not advocating for that. But that's you're not going to see 3 out of the 6 games with Camargo and Didi starting and Stott on the bench. You're going to see Stott out there 5 of the 6 games, and that's what it needs to be. That's what it needs to be.
Yeah, I roll with Stott the rest of the year. Let's see what the kid has. I mean, how many teams that we talk about it? How the Phillies every year, their misuse of it's not only their lack of development in their minor leagues, it's not letting players develop. Like, that's why I'm so glad that Alec Bohm has been able to play this year, because it's proven to me that if you let a prospect play, they will come out of it. They will come out of their struggles. Now, and a lot of things with Boom, I remember, I'll never forget when he had that game early in the season when he had the 3 errors and he made that comment and then everyone questioned him and he came out and said, yeah, I said it. He owned it. And forever since then, he'll be a fan favorite because he's a guy that is honest and that's okay. But you let him play. And like I said, the same goes for Stott. I think you're going to see it. Stott is going to start turning it around and he's going to start showing that he is capable of being a major league player. We all know he has the talent. Unfortunately, in the Phillies' previous regimes, even under Gabe Kapler didn't play a lot of young guys. He was a veteran guy as well as like Joe Girardi. He didn't let young kids play. You have to let these kids play. You look across all major leagues, so many teams have rookies or young prospects helping their teams. And you always say to yourself, why can't the Phillies do that? Yeah. And the excuse is, well, the Phillies don't have it. Well, the reason the Phillies don't have it is because you don't allow it to come to fruition. You never allow these guys the chance or the opportunity to show what they can do. And when I say that, I mean not for 2 games or 2 weeks. I'm talking an extended period of time, like 2 or 3 months. Let them play. Let the kids play.
We're going to keep the Phillies talk going tomorrow because obviously we'll preview the Brewers series tomorrow because I want to get into Ranger Suarez. We talked about Corey Knebel. I want to talk about that. But I want to use the last 10 minutes here, the last 8 minutes, to kind of talk about this whole theory of firing Joe Girardi for Rob Thomson midseason versus maybe there's talk we should have done this at the end of last season and maybe started fresh this year. But, kind of show how that little bit of a spark there that by firing Joe Girardi has done for this team and whether it's too late or not. And then you look at with the Sixers and Glenn Rivers, and they claim they're going to bring Glenn Rivers back. Baseball and basketball are different season-wise. If you go a third of the way through the season before you fire Glenn Rivers next year, it's a lot harder for that, spark to change things. And, changing basketball systems and stuff like that. Everybody says, well, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Don't fire this guy because, the replacement might not be as good. But sometimes it's necessary. And you see this spark with the Phillies, even though it's a small little 3-game sample size, what just the culture change it does and why the Sixers might not want to do that. Because I see if you even just say and promote somebody from within, you got someone like Sam Cassell on the bench with the Sixers. And I'm not saying he's the right option, but just keeping Doc Rivers, who exactly mirrored Joe Girardi on attitude, on energy level, on connection with the players and the fans. All those things are exactly similar, very parallel situations there. Underachieving teams. Why not just the Sixers brass should be looking at what the Phillies are doing right now and be like, yeah, let's not let it get that out of hand. Let's make that move now because it's obviously not working. Do you think the Sixers can? I mean, the Sixers can definitely learn something. I don't think it's do you think they can? But do you think they saw what happened in Philly this weekend and like maybe we got to rethink our stance here on on Glenn Rivers?
I mean, I hope they did. But my concern is Josh Harris. Like, does he really care?
Well, Josh Harris, there's a lot of similarities with John Middleton.
That's true. And is Doc Rivers Josh Harris's guy? That's something you got to take into account. Like, we don't know. I mean, we know that Daryl Morey was brought in after Doc Rivers, right?
Just like Dave Dombrowski after Joe Girardi.
So we can't technically say that Doc Rivers is technically Daryl Morey's guy. We don't know. Like, nobody ever really knows.
The similarities here are extreme. I just want to start the conversation, and then we can pick this conversation up more this week. The similarities between the whole structure of what happened in Philly with the Phillies to the Sixers, everything is very similar. But basketball is a different sport than baseball. And I don't want to go into next season with the same problems that the Phillies did and then have to mid-season pivot and make changes.
See, my whole I don't want to say confusion, but my whole area of where I'm at with the Sixers is a little bit mold. because one part of me saying, okay, yeah, Doc Rivers needs to go regardless of the situation.
Mhm.
Doc Rivers is, overrated. I always say it because I'm passionate and I get pissed off. But once again, I'm not the basketball person that you are. Like, I don't know as much about the sport. I only go by kind of what I see going on. But I guess where I'm at with the Sixers is Doc Rivers a major issue in this team? Or is it more so, I don't want to say lack of talent because they have talent. They have Joel Embiid, who's probably top 1 or 2 players in the league. They have a young Tyrese Maxey. But if I look at the Sixers roster, is the roster flawed? Like, it's so similar to the Phillies situation. Like, the same things we're talking about. Like, is it more so Doc Rivers, or is it more so the lack of bench that the Sixers have? Is it the lack of supporting cast around Embiid? Like, do they have to get the Harden thing figured out? Like, if they could get a, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if they could get a Bradley Beal in here instead of Harden, does that change things? I don't know. I don't know what Doc Rivers' ceiling is. I know he's won a title, but he won one, and that was with 3 Hall of Fame players. It comes out that, or 3 or 4. I don't know what Doc Rivers can do with the right roster, but what I do know is that it's more than just Doc Rivers. And we've said that about the Phillies. It's more than Joe Girardi.
I'm not looking at the talent or the rosters as much as the energy level and the passion. And Joe Girardi, obviously, you could tell the passion was gone. And I kind of feel the same way about Glenn Rivers, that the passion's been gone for a long time. And, just keeping the bigger named guy, the bigger named manager, just because they've won a title in the past. Joe Girardi had a World Series ring in the past. It doesn't mean once you lose the passion to do the job every single day, it radiates to your crew, to your players. And that's why I'm trying to find the similarities there, because I don't want the Sixers to make the same mistake the Phillies did and wait too long, because it might be too late for the Phillies.
Well,
this year.
Well, yeah, and you're right with that, because the Sixers have the luxury of making a coaching change before the season if they would want to, whereas the Phillies already waited too long and it was too late. The Sixers at least have the option to make that decision. Now, I guess my question is, I know it's early and you're just raising this question. It's, you're raising the question. But my question to you is, if you were to make a coaching change, are there any guys out there, in your opinion, right off the bat, that you would like to see here, or that you think would make a difference on, turning this team around?
I haven't really dug deep into the potential, because I really believe that Glenn Rivers will be back. I'm just, obviously I say Sam Cassell.
You think Sam Cassell would have what it takes?
He's not I won't say that he's my front runner.
Would he learn? But could he be a similar Rob Thomson, where he's managed under Rivers?
And the players
mistakes,
and the players have a very close connection with him. And he's more passionate and energetic on the bench than Glenn Rivers is. Look, it was something else, and we're getting up here. We only got about a minute and a half, 2 minutes left here in the show. Something I feel like, and I texted you, I'm like, I haven't had time to really do the research. So I don't know if this is true or not. But it feels like, at least in football and basketball, and I'm not sure if it is the case in baseball or not, that a lot of the top coaches are very young. It's no longer an old. You had talked earlier that a lot of managers, it takes them till they're close to the 70s or 80s to be successful managers. But it seems like it's a young man's game, the manager's game, the leader. Football, basketball, and I don't know if that's the case in baseball yet or not. But I think it will trend in that way. I mean, look, Gabe Kapler's younger. He's not like a 75-year-old manager. The older managers.
I see what you're saying.
I think you see the majority. Look at the teams last year. Who was in the Super Bowl last year? The Rams, Sean McVay, young guy, and the coach, I can't even think of his name, of the Bengals, young guy.
Youngest in the NFL.
Yeah, the Packers, young head coach in LaFleur's. Nick Sirianni with the Eagles, young coach. A majority of the successful teams in the NFL, young coaches. NBA, same thing. You're not getting the guys that are 75 years. They're not bringing out Larry Brown to coach at 75 years old. They're looking at younger guys. The Boston's guys, Udoku, younger guy. Monty Williams, younger guy with the Phoenix Suns.
Changing of the guard.
Yeah, is it that sports in general, you have to start looking at the younger guys to take over the leadership roles at this point because they can relate to the players better, but they also have the energy level still to handle it. It's something I'm working on, and I don't know who the managers were of the last like 4 or 5 World Series teams. If there's any trends there in baseball, but the trend is there in baseball or in basketball and basketball and football. So it might be time to start that trend in baseball as well. The younger guys.
I think if you look at the sports in general, I think the NFL and the NBA is way more progressive than Major League Baseball. I mean, Major League Baseball, we've already talked about how they've shit the bed in so many areas as far as how they've allowed the product to become so disgraceful. It's a disgraceful thing to watch a lot of the time when we're seeing 25 strikeouts and 17 walks in a game and the game's 5 hours long. I mean, we've been talking about this point forever. I think the NFL and NBA have definitely as a sport are way more progressive. And you're right. I think baseball will catch on. It's just catching on late.
I made a tweet. I forget the exact tweet, but I was like, whoever he or she is as the next manager, and I put that out there. I'm like, hold on a second. There's no like I could see a female being a manager in basketball soon. There's a couple people. Dawn Staley might get some credit eventually. You had Becky Hammond, who's now in the WNBA coaching, but was the assistant under Popovich with the Spurs for many years. In football, you see some females starting to climb the ranks in the front office and as coordinators in football. Baseball doesn't have that. They just don't have that progressive. So I'm like, I made the tweet. Then I'm like, but it's a pointless tweet because that baseball is not progressive like that. Look, I don't know what the answer is. I'm just thinking out loud that trending in general, is Rob Thomson. He's only 58. He looks like he's 75, but he's only 58 years old. Maybe that's considered young in baseball terms now. I don't know, but I'm thinking the younger, more open-minded type, coaches might be making the better leaders overall in sports right now.
Yeah, but I mean, just to piggyback on what your original point was, I think personally that the Sixers should change the coach.
Oh yeah, they absolutely should. And this week proves that change isn't always better, but change can be for the better. And this weekend proves that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like a team that changes coaches like every 3 years. I don't think that's always the answer.
Yeah.
But I do think that, how everyone was just in this argument, especially on Twitter, you saw it a lot. And I know sometimes it's trolls, but a lot of people were like, Joe Girardi's not their problem with the Phillies. Okay, Joe Girardi's not the only problem with the Phillies, but Joe Girardi was a major part of the problem with the Phillies. And I think you're seeing why he was. He didn't allow for any of the human element to come out in the game. It was all analytics all the time. And once again, I will preach that till I'll preach it till I'm blue in the face. And I get in arguments with because I know a lot of the younger generation loves analytics. I'm not saying, for the record, I'm not saying get rid of analytics. But how you manage analytics is important, just as important as the analytics. If you have a person that manages the analytics the way that Joe Girardi did, you will see a lot of unsuccessful results. That's all I'm saying.
We got to wrap this up here. Philly saying, what does a manager really do in baseball? And it's exactly. I brought that point up at the beginning of the show. Is that a manager? It's the easiest of all the 4 major sports, managing wise. But you still have to motivate your players. You still got to put them in the right times at the right points to manage your roster, and how you motivate these guys with consistent playing time or not, holding players accountable.
You have to instill confidence.
Yeah. It's the least the manager in baseball has the least amount of X's and O's in any sport, but they can affect the outcome of a game pretty well. So, I get what you're saying and I agree with it, but again, changing a manager in baseball can still have a major effect on the team's psyche as a whole. And you saw that this week. Anyway, we got to wrap it up for the day there. went into overtime there today on Trending in the AM. Overreaction Monday. Jason Voorhees is here next to me at Mustang3651. Mark Moscatelli already dipped out there earlier in the show. He had some last-second work things to take care of. I am Phil Stife. We'll be back tomorrow, continuing this talk, continuing maybe a little of the basketball talk. I think Scotty is going to join us either tomorrow or Wednesday to talk NBA Finals and where that series is at now, 1-1, as we go to Boston for Game 3. So we'll talk that. I'll get Scotty's opinion on this whole, manager changing in baseball, comparing it to Glenn Rivers, which we just kind of touched on there at the beginning or at the end of the show here. Got lots of Eagles things to talk about this week. We didn't even get to talk about OTAs and Shane Steichen, the play calling. We'll get into that this week as well. And, so we're going to wrap it up there for the day. Make sure you're following everybody, subscribe, and sharing out the shows. We greatly appreciate everybody checking in today. Back tomorrow. Everybody have a great day.
Real quick.
Yo.
Top Gun, 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
All I'll say. Phenomenal movie.
Seems like the consensus going on. Sorry, we ran out of time. I know you wanted to give a Top Gun review. Maybe we'll pick that up tomorrow as well. 10 out of 10. Everybody go see Top Gun for sure, man. I can't watch it now because I saw the new Applebee's commercials and I'm still petrified of my time working as an Applebee's manager. So anytime I see Applebee's promoting a movie or involved with a movie, it just makes me cringe. Yeah, absolutely cringe. I'll bring up an exact reason when we talk about this later in the week. Everybody have a great day, and Phillies are back, baby. Ring the bell.
Ring the bell.